Monkey here, as always, along with my good friend, producer, co-host extraordinaire, Stacey.
Stop. Hey, how do you want us to install this water heater? And my coworker was like, I don't know, install the water heater. Like, why are you even asking me? He's like, well, I don't know if you know, but what you designed, it can't physically fit through the front door of this building.
My class is only 40 minutes. So we have to get this done in 40 minutes. You have to clean up in 40 minutes. And then it also, when you use the miter saw, a lot of kids are scared of the miter saw, and you just see the difference in their confidence when they come in here compared to when they leave. They're excited.
Be announcing a new county that's going to join us in Maryland, so we continue to spread it. And I'll say my peers across the country are starting to take this and adopt this at their local IEC chapters.
Either AI assistant tools, you have AI master builder tools, and then you have kind of a bit of both that are 1 foot in BIM, in current processes, and 1 foot in AI.
Said, Brett, in life, opportunity meets you at your level of preparation.
She said, here's the keys, go forth and do great things.
Good morning. It is morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here alongside producer and co-host extraordinaire,
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you, Stacey.
Good to see you.
What's new in your world?
What's new in my world? I'm getting ready to kick off this social campaign. I hired a new intern, so she starts with me, and then we're doing the Summarize program in Montgomery County Public Schools. It's a 5-week high school internship program. So I have four interns that are joining me this summer.
That is so much work. That's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful.
I tested it out the last 2 summers with 1 intern and then 2 interns. And then I met someone that was similar in my boat. And he's like, I do 5 interns. And I'm like, oh, I guess I got to up my game then. Because the first and the second 2 were good students. So I hope
awesome.
This next round's pretty good.
Yeah, I always think about, like, if I were that person, would I want to work for whoever, right? And I can honestly say, if I were an intern, I would really, really be happy to work with you. You'd be awesome at that. Yeah, I mean, just very caring, very thorough, trying really hard to make sure that you create the best possible experience for folks. So they're in good hands. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see how you juggle it all.
I know. Summer is going to be a little tricky. I'm trying to organize things right now, so we'll see. But
yeah, summer.
What about you? How's your book launch? I did put my order in, by the way.
Did you put your order in?
Yes.
Thank
you.
June,
it says it'll come out, I think.
Yeah, it's so it's funny. I was actually talking to the publisher this past week, like Friday. And I was like, so how does this work? Like, how many books do I need to order a bunch of books and like have them at Amazon, or like, how do I do all that? And they're laughing. They're like, oh, you're cute. Cause I'm dumb. I don't know anything. I'm it's my first rodeo. So but it was awesome. They were like, actually, your pre-orders are stacking up, and Amazon's going to order 3 times the number of books that you have in terms of pre-orders. So your pre-orders are really making a difference in terms of impact already. So I'm thrilled to hear that, and I'll just thank everybody that's gone ahead and pre-ordered the book, and thank you in advance for providing a genuine review. I hope it's an awesome review, but I'll take honest on Amazon, and that all that stuff helps us to broaden our reach with the book. So it's called Well Built. For those of you who are listening, the book is Well Built: How the Top 2% of Construction Contractors Create Superior Value, Profits, and Excellence.
So will you go on tour, or how does that work after? Do you do talks on your book?
Yeah. So I already, I think you know this, I do a lot of speaking engagements as it as it is, but I'm not really promoting anything,
Right.
per se, other than Well Built, and Well Built Construction Consulting, that is, which is
Right.
the name of our firm. And we so that's normally what I'm out talking about. If from a promo standpoint, is just people find their way to that. But I do have a few keynotes ready to roll on the the sort of point of the book, and we are working from a PR standpoint to try to get some speaking engagements where I can actually promote the book. But I mean, if I'm being honest, Stacy, like the vision for the book, when you have a book as narrowly targeted as this book, which is really for the commercial construction industry, and even so, like for executives in the commercial construction industry, right? It's really it's pretty narrowly tailored. When you have a book that's got that tight focus, it's not about selling a million books.
Mhm.
It's really about getting the books in the right hands of people who for whom hopefully it changes their mindset, changes their business, and may lead some of those folks to want to get to know me, which
Mhm.
would be an added bonus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had one quick question for you, Stacy. You're out and about in the construction industry a lot. Are you seeing and hearing contractors being busy right now, slow right now, somewhere in the middle? What kind of feedback are you hearing in the market?
All my contractors have been very busy.
That's
I
awesome.
haven't heard of any slowdown. What about you?
It's so variable with all the different folks that we work with and that we know. The people who've been really focused on developer-driven construction over the past few years are slow,
Hmm.
but it depends on what point in the project they are. Like if they're at the tail end of a project, they're slammed right now because they're finishing projects that got started in 2022.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean? And but if they're at the front end, if they're a trade like way at the front end of a project, they have been slow and they're starting to pick up. But just it's an interesting topic out there as we for those of the audience that are catching the recorded version years down the line, it is currently May of 2024.
Oh,
For context, as we're talking, I was just thinking, like, if you're listening to this show in 2026, you're like, I don't know, everybody, don't they know that there's a huge global boom going on right now or whatever? But in May of 24, it was variable. It's been up and down, though overall picking up. New sales are picking up, and for those contractors that have been slower than they'd like to be, they see an end to that in sight, which is cool. So
that's good.
yeah. Well, I want to introduce today's guest. Today's guest is a friend of mine that I've known for the past probably 4 years, something along those lines, all in. His name is Gregory Malcolm. He is the founder and CEO of Iron Shore Contracting. Iron Shore is a roofing and metal panels contractor. He's also the CEO of Gamlock, which is a metal panels manufacturer. So it's this cool combination of businesses under Greg's authority. And I've gotten a chance to watch him work up close and personal with his business. And it is extremely rare to see the level of passion and loyalty that you see from the people that work for him. And that's why I wanted Greg to join us today. So, Greg, thank you so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm honored, considering, as you said, we met 3.5, 4 years ago. Fast friendship, some mutual acquaintances. Thanks for introducing me to Stacy as well. So, definitely honored to be here.
Well, thank you for making the time. And I for full disclosure and for context, I also our consulting firm, and this doesn't happen a lot, Greg. And now I'm going to have a whole bunch of our clients like, why am I not on the show?
I'm used to it.
Yeah. Right. But Iron Shore is a client of Well Built Consulting, and so I do have some really up close and personal experience with the business, and so I have some pretty pointed questions, I'm sure, through the course of the conversation that'll be ones I know just where to go to get interesting topics going. But so overall, Greg, tell us a little bit, like the backstory. How long have you guys been in business? When did you start the company, and why?
Wow, backstory. So starting, I want to say June or July of '07, I took a day off from work and I went downtown, filed a business license, and then I went back to work the next day. And I, just went, sat at my desk and, and just went back to estimating, project managing, just doing what I do. At the time I was in working for a roofing company. Prior to that, I was working for a GC, well-known GC in the area. Prior to that, speaking of internships, I was an intern for Cotton Construction for many years, learned a lot from Mr. Cotton. Actually ended up working for him again. And after starting Ironshore, I went to him and I said, Mr. Cotton, if I was anything like some of these employees I have, I would like to apologize to you.
We all started that way.
I'd like to apologize. I'd like to think I was never that bad, right? I was a perfect guy.
Weren't we all? I mean, I know, speaking for me, one of the things that I have learned over time is that while I had lots of upsides as an employee, I was not a good employee. I was not.
I won't name drop, but I remember once, and I tell this story often. Forgot what the error of the day was, and I said, I'm sorry, and I won't say his last name, but Marty, my then boss, he just expletives, right, which is not par for the course today, but just right. Expletive after it's like, God damn it, Malcolm, I don't want you falling on the sword. I want you to do the job right the first time. And I was like, but I said I was sorry. He's like, stop falling on the sword, Malcolm. He's like, just do the job right. And it just, speaking of swords, that one stuck. But to answer your question, started in '07. And I had the blessing of my former employer.
Nice.
They actually partnered with me there for a while. They were 10% in, and years later, and speaking with I'll say first names only so that I'm not implicating anyone. Yeah. But Mark was like, I bet you thought I was kicking you out the nest there, Malcolm. And I said, no, a little harsh. He goes, sometimes you got to fly. You just got to fly.
That's cool.
But we partnered there for a while, and as he said, we cut the umbilical cord about 4 or 5 years in, and and we've been going ever since. Why did I start? There was an opportunity. I had won a project. It was about $1 million, and I was looking around the industry for a minority roofing contractor, and couldn't find one that kind of we would risk that to do. And I was like, well, I kind of fit the description, right? Except I company, right?
Right. Yeah. The only part I don't have is my own company, but I could do all the stuff, and right? I happen to meet the criteria. Yeah.
So that was my initial, I guess that calling, if you want to say, that kind of, say, hey, why don't you give this a try? It ended up turning into, I think, a $60,000 skylight contract. And then we were off to the races from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it was just opportunity met preparation kind of story, right?
Exactly.
But as you describe it, maybe not as prepared as you may have liked to have been, and that's, I think, a lot of people's story. Right?
Yeah, we're never as prepared, right?
Well, it's probably the reason that more people don't take the leap is because they have a story in their head that they're not prepared and they can't do it. But really the truth is, if you look at all of us who did make the leap at one point or another, in some cases we were pushed. I was pushed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
My former pastor, Bishop Nelson is his name. And I remember once he said to me, I was kind of commiserating about something. And he said, son, you don't despise small beginnings, right? He says, even the giant oak was once an acorn, right? And I think what we forget to do is we forget to start. You just start, right? I tell this tongue-in-cheek version. I went to Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica.
You're from Jamaica, yeah.
Ironshore to be exact, right? So we could talk about some other parts, but it won't ring won't boat to the story, but I went and I spoke to my uncle and I was saying, look, I'm working for this roofing company. I'm doing this much business. And I told him my goal at the time. And I was like, yeah, if I could do that, I'd be happy and I'll be good. And the tongue in cheek part of that is never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that I would have blown by that so many times over, to the point where now if I do that number, we would be in the red,
Totally.
the first month or two in business, you know what I mean? So it's interesting that when you start, you just never know where you'll end up.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And yeah, again, I'm in the early portions of my journey, but I can relate to that perfectly. There were things that when I started the company, I was like, I'm probably not going to do that. I don't think I actually even said one time out loud, like, I don't know if I'll ever have another consultant on the team. You're like, fast forward, we're hiring two more this year. It's just, opportunity and then what you sort of feel called to do. And so as you made the decision to grow, right? How did that kind of start to materialize? Where was the growth coming from, and why were you experiencing such success?
Relationships, really good friendship in the industry. And more importantly, it's also the network is what I'll say. We was very well connected in the region. I would get a phone call. I would bid on a project. I would hunt. I mean, geez, I remember one day driving literally to the Eastern Shore for a meeting, 30 minutes for a pre-bid, ended up finishing that and driving back to Northern Virginia, all in the span of one day, just to get the work done. And that's the part, those hidden kind of road warrior things that most people don't see, but that's where the opportunity came from. It's just chasing a lead, speaking with friends that needed help, speaking with advisors, going to the people that I worked with before as a project manager to say, hey, listen, I've started my own thing now. Just give me something small, right? And so we did a few things, that is St. Agnes Hospital, I think Mount Vernon Children's Hospital. We did many phases there, just small, just throughout time, and over time it built, and it helped having advisors and having partners. It was like, no, that's too big. I see big buildings today that I was like, I remember when I wanted to bid that job. I was like, probably wouldn't have been a good idea at the time. I call them the accidents that never happen, right? So it's a lot of little bits, as I like to call it, and partnering, getting the right people on board at the right time. I was very fortunate in that, God rest his soul, Bruce. Bruce tells a story. You brought up Bruce the other day, but Bruce,
And Bruce was at one point in time, what role in your company?
Bruce at one point was a controller.
Okay.
Of my company, right?
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to give
context. So Bruce, however, when Bruce decided to help me out and come to work for me, which it was very interesting because I can think of no less than 5 people that I used to report to, that I used to work for, that ended up working for me, which is very humbling, right?
That's a cool experience.
But Bruce ended up saying to me, he's like, Malcolm, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't even be in this industry, right? I told them that they should hire you. I was there at the interview, and I was like, I like that kid. He's going to go far, right? So, it's humbling having partners like that for, double-digit years, the guys in the field with their talent and the artistry that they do, and the back-breaking labor, as well. That's a huge part of it. I mentioned to you the proverb, it's an African proverb. I think it is like, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together, right? And the more togetherness that we can have, I think the further we'll go as individuals and as a corporation.
So let's talk about. I couldn't agree more, and I this is going to probably veer into some territory, Stacy, that you may have some interest in talking about, as well as we talk about attracting people and getting people to have interest in joining the business. But I'll start first with just sort of in my experience with Ironshore, you have a handful of key people that are, and it's more than a handful. It's two handfuls. It's a good group of a core group of key people that just have an immense amount of loyalty and commitment to the business. And I guess did you do that on purpose? Would be the question, right? Did you? Is that happening on accident, or is that with intent that you've created that kind of loyal, long-lasting core?
I can't say it was an accident. One of my mantras, good, bad, or indifferent, is I like to treat people the way I would want to be treated, right? And my journey to Ironshore is is kind of fraught with incidents of like I wouldn't have done that way, or I wouldn't have wanted that to have happened to me, and so even the other day I kind of lambasted the team for just something we should have known, right? The whole you should know better, you got to do better, and someone there, whether he nodded off or not, his eyes were closed, and I was like, "Don't sleep in my meeting." He's like, "I'm not sleeping." I was like, "You know what? Maybe you weren't asleep. I apologize." Right? I'm sorry, little riled up right now. And while I'm at it, listen, I'm coming down hard on you, and this is the way it's supposed to be right now. But simultaneously, I want to acknowledge the good that you were doing. There are many goods that you're doing, which is part of why you're here. But the point there was, in the middle of all that heat and commotion, I stopped to take a minute. It's like, hey, we're all human beings, we're all people. And whether I'm the man in the tower or Greg, I still say, hey, listen, I apologize. If I was wrong, I was wrong, right? But together as a team, let's kind of pull together and focus on the thing that's right. And I think remembering that we're humans, remembering that we're people, kind of goes a long way with individuals. And, I could tell story after story where it was like, hey, I got to go home. My son, my daughter, my wife, my, so-and-so. And, the whole company as a whole, when Bruce passed away, that affected not only me, but that affected the company. And, and I could name a few other people, Eddie as well. We're all routines, right? And so, Steve calls at like 4:35 in the morning. He's like, Eddie's not here. He's usually here by now. And we're just like, something's wrong. And we all like, forget about sending the guys in the field. Let's go find Eddie, right? Yeah. But those kinds of things kind of gelled us, bonded us together over time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what my takeaway from that, which I think is, something that every manager, leader, founder should think about. Doesn't mean you have to embrace this mindset, but is that while your longevity and loyalty and commitment from this core staff didn't happen on accident per se,
right?
The focus wasn't let's get these people to stay and be loyal over the long term. The focus was let's just do the right thing.
It's also doing the right thing, but also committing. One of the things I say to everyone, you give me enough time, my goal is to make you a little bit better than when you first met me, right? Even if it means like, I want to stay away from that guy, right? But as a craft, I can tell you the stories of many people that had been with me for 9, 10, 11 years that says, hey, this is the longest I'd ever worked anywhere. Man, I had some of the best years of my career while working with you. And there were just little tweaks, little nuances that I think that as we lifted together, that as we worked together, we're able to bring out the better part of each other. not always able to keep it together for a long period of time because, we're still humans, right? And it's like, oh, I did this on my own. It's like, yeah, but you did it with the help of others, right? And the minute you think you did it by yourself is the minute you go back to where you were before. And I do, another thing I say is like, I want us to stay an organism as long as I can before we become an organization. And the reason I say that is, as an organism, like the smallest part of you that hurts, you feel it, right? If your toe, if your finger, any part of you hurts, you feel it. As an organization, it's like, my profits are low. Okay, let's chop that off. Let's chop this off. Let's cut that off. Let's get and we start moving with numbers, and we forget the people aspect of it. And profits are important. Without that, we wouldn't be in business, right? Without that, we would be a nonprofit. And that doesn't bode well with some of the other conversations that we have to have, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think best practices and helping people to grow in their craft, showing people that you have their back, that you'll go to war for them, that you'll fight for them. That goes a long way. From the guy in the field to the guy, at the desk across from you, that goes a very long way.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And it requires a value system that when the chips are down and a decision needs to be made, right? A hard decision needs to be made that, do you prioritize getting out to the job site today and not getting yelled at by the customer and making money? Or do you prioritize figuring out what's going on with Eddie?
Yeah.
Right. And scatter and figure that out.
Right. And there's a world where we can do both, right? But it's kind of like the priority, and it's one of the interesting things about
if you have to choose,
starting and growing, it's like you learn to be nimble. You learn to kind of squeeze the important things in. You figure out a way. You find a way. There's so many times that I was like, "This is it. I'm done. It's not going to happen. This is the last day." I remember. I could tell you the year. I could tell you where I was. I was like, this is the final sunset, and I am going to enjoy it. And I'm sitting here, and I'm watching it on the horizon. At least I could tell the story that I lasted until this date, this time, But somehow we dig deep and we find a way, right? And the journey isn't lost on me that, top 2 businesses to go defunct within the first X years is restaurants
and construction,
right? And then you throw in the added nuance of being a minority in construction. And then you throw in a little nuance of being an immigrant, right? Which is kind of great, in today's world a little bit, but, coming in through the 80s, 90s, so on and so forth, it's been a journey, right? So, singing in a strange land is always very interesting, right? And so building this company and building this community, as I would like to call it, to name drop, Estuardo, Omar, Teray, those guys, they have their different names for it. Like Omar calls it the shore and talks about the safety that we have at the shore, without Estuardo kind of teaching me the nuances. I went out trying to help him one day, and I tell this story, and he goes, "Yeah, Greg, if you worked for me, I'd fire you a long time ago," right? And I was like, I'm not good at this, but I'm good at this. And what I'm good at, I'll do it, right? And what you're good at, I'll allow you to teach me, even in my position, because it's like, it would be silly of me to think I know everything. When you first, spoke to me about this, it was about the different alphabets, as I call it, the different organizations that we're a part of, just in an effort of, why recreate the wheel? Why not partner with those who already do it and do it well? And then you gain that added knowledge.
So I want to talk about that for a second, which is, or maybe a few minutes, which is sort of how you have leaned on these external partners to build those relationships, to build that knowledge base and things like that. And so I'll leave you to think about that for a second while I thank our sponsors. I want to roll through and show some appreciation for the folks that help us to make this show a possibility and help us to expand our audience every week. First is Katz Bosch. Katz Bosch is an accounting firm that really caters to the middle and small market construction industry. They do a fantastic job for several of my clients and Stacy's clients, and we are always hearing great things about their work. There is Lawrence Law. Lawrence Law is a boutique law firm that really understands what contractors need from day to day to litigation and everything in between. So make sure you reach out to Lawrence Law. Sandy Spring Bank, which is a regional bank that is also, and I've joked about this in the past, it seems like every other check that we receive from our clients has a Sandy Spring logo on it, which tells you that we only work with construction companies, so it tells you something. They're definitely working with a lot of contractors, and they're highly trusted in that space. And then lastly is Marsh McLennan Agency, which has some of the best bonding people and insurance people I've ever met. Bar none, the best bonding people I've ever met. I can say that with confidence in the industry. And if you're a contractor and you have bonding needs, insurance needs, Marsh McLennan Agency is a great phone call to make. So we'd encourage you to talk to those folks. So Greg, let's talk about those external partners. How have you been? What have been some of the strategies you've used to lean on external partners to create success in your business?
Joining, participating is one. Learning. I made sure to show up to the meetings, made sure to show up to the networking. Learned a lot from quite a few of them. I'm not sure how we go with name dropping. I don't want to promote anything.
It's all good, man. No, do it. It's we always encourage them. If they're doing great work for you.
Yeah. So again, formerly with NRCA, the National Roofing Contractors Association, MARCA, which the Mid-Atlantic Roofing Corporations Association, ABC, IBEC, which was formerly RCI. So these are well-known, I'll say, pillars in the construction industry, and also specifically in roofing.
Right.
And so instead of me kind of digging up, or in this, I would say encyclopedia, but going through Google and searching everything, one, you foster a relationship. You can speak to a human that is a professional in the area, and you gain that knowledge that they have just almost instantaneously. And again, you have access to this pool of people that you wouldn't on your own, right? And so you're also plugged in. And I think you and I talked about the book, The Go-Giver. It's like, you got to give in order to get. And and a part of getting is cyclical with your giving. And so and also, I'd be remiss to talk about, I'm a part of Vista, just a leadership group of just amazing individuals, right? And having the kind of leadership that we have, and there are times where I'm just like, this is it. As I mentioned before, it's like you don't feel like it, but it's like going to the gym. You don't want to go, but then at the end of it, you're like, man, I'm glad I did that.
You always feel good.
I feel better. I learned something. I think I can look forward to the next cycle, the next time we go through this, and the friendships that you develop there. Even last month's meeting, just kind of touched on some very touchy subjects, and one of them, I leaned over, he's like, hey, hold on, Greg, you're part of this thing. You're part of our team. You're part of our unit. And it's like, you can lean on us for support. Let's take a minute and let's talk about what's going on. And going back to what I said before, it's like, we like to think that we are invulnerable, that we're able to take it on by ourselves. But that gathered knowledge that you gain from having these people behind you, probably 3 of the 5 people you just mentioned, we work with. Right. And it's interesting because, I'm not a bonding expert, but I have a great bonding guy, you know what I mean? And when we were in the thick of things, some very turbulent times, which is like a story for another day. Plug for the next time you want me to come on your show.
Just saying.
We can talk about crawling out of the hard times with a great bonding agent, that ends up becoming a friend, right? And that's the interesting part, is that you get great teammates when you're winning. You get really good friends when you have someone that struggle with you through some hard times. And again, going back to these corporations that we work with, that we lean on, they expose us to people that have this vast amount of knowledge, vast amount of experience, vast amount of exposure, that on our own, the chances are of running into them would be, I don't want to say slim to none, but it would be very difficult. Makes it a lot easier to have a conversation as well. And it increases my collective knowledge, right? I don't want to say I'm the Borg or anything, but, I do believe that we get assimilated with the knowledge of the people that we surround ourselves with.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
I feel like you can solve problems quicker too when you have that connection to other people in the industry that have been through it, and then it's your first time going through it, and you kind of tell your scenario, and they're like, I've been through it, this is what I did, and you're like, oh, thanks. And then
I have friends just through these corporations alone. I have friends Louisiana, Colorado, Oregon, California, Chicago, Florida, going on and on and on, that we can call on, that will give good advice, that will help us through some of these really interesting scenarios that we find ourselves in.
No doubt.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, there's this combination of things. You said it back at the beginning of the show, that when I asked what led to your growth, what led to your success, it was immediately out of your mouth. You said relationships.
Yeah.
Just jump right out of your mouth. And I think what you've got relationships with your people, and my biggest takeaway there is have your values organized in such a way that doing right by your team is the first thing, and everything else will tend to take care of itself. And I think that's right. I really do. I believe that, and I watch that play out, because because we talk about when the chips are down and you think everything's going sideways, somehow you find a way to pull it out. You need your team to do that. And the team only does whatever it takes for people who they feel genuinely would do whatever it takes for them.
Right.
And I think that was a great takeaway. And then another piece is kind of surrounding yourself with peers and experts.
Yeah.
And using the well-known, proven organizations that are out there at your disposal. And I don't care who you are. If you're a roofing contractor, obviously, Greg just went through a great list for you with NRCA and Marca and IBEC. But then also, I assure you that regardless of your trade, those things exist, as well as for general contractors, they exist. ABC obviously is, for both. You have union contractors have their organizations as well. I mean, if you choose not to participate in all of these forums where experts and peers are gathering, you're missing such an amazing opportunity to put yourself in company of people who can help you.
Yeah. I'm always humbled, Building Congress and Exchange, they'll call me up every once in a while. They're like, hey, we want to do an article on you. And I'm like, me, little me, like, nah, go find someone else, but I was introduced to them, year one, I hadn't heard of them. And, I kind of call them the upper echelon of construction. These are the white collar of the blue collar industry, right? So it's interesting, the crowd that you find there. But you get exposed to quite a few people and those relationships. We call it Smaltimore, right?
Yeah. And the same exact dynamic exists in markets all over the country.
Exactly.
What exists in Baltimore absolutely exists in Boston, exists in Pittsburgh, exists in Omaha, Nebraska. It's the same. The construction industry, for better or worse, is completely fractured all over the country. It is a regional, at best, typically very local kind of game. And so, you mentioned these. these organizations are big, but they're the local chapters and the people who participate locally are really where your local value is.
We're quick to pick up the phone and be like, hey, who's this guy? You ever heard of this guy? Where'd this guy come from, right?
I've gotten that phone call from you. Text message. What do you think of XYZ Builders? I'll be like, don't do it.
Yeah. One of our larger contracts, and I like to tell this story. I remember, I think about a year, 2 or 3, and I'd spent hundreds of dollars in multiple days going to some seminar to learn something that never worked out, and I felt like it was a waste of time. Anyway, on the heels of that, I came back and I was at a launching. It was a pre-con meeting for Maryland Live. And I was in a room, and I swear to you, it was no less than 600 people. And I walked in, I was in the back, and I was like, yeesh, how do I differentiate myself from all these people? And it's literally, I remember it, I can see it right now. How do I differentiate myself from all these people? And the guy, at the podium, he was like, hey, listen, for you guys out there that want to work with us, he's like, I'll give you some advice, but here's a big thing. Don't overreach and don't overpromise, right? Just stay within your lane. Don't do too much. Fortunately, we went on to bid the job. We won the job. We did well on the project. Kind of, went on to do a few other casinos from there. But it was a turning point for me, in the decision making, because again, I'll say it was a blessing to be able to find that way and find that relationship. That ended up helping us. I walked in and, it was someone that I knew that was a part of the team, and speaking of relationships, and this person was a decider. I don't know, what all went in, but there was a lot that went back and forth in the negotiation and the bidding of that project. But to go from, hundreds of people down to part of a very narrow team, that's always a very special and exciting feeling. And I will say, for those that are out there, like, just, on the incline, the up and to the right of your career, just kind of keep on, figure out a way to differentiate yourself, and whatever that is, just kind of keep doing it and doing it well.
I love it. And I think there are always these watershed moments for, and there are, I bet you could go back and piece together a, sort of like pivotal moment A, pivotal moment B, and kind of how it propelled your business into either a positive or negative direction at any given point in time. But the common threads in behavior that you've shared, I think, help to create those great watershed moments and overcome the negative ones. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. No. Just talking about peace and moments together. It's like the first time I thought I wouldn't make payroll. You know what I mean? Those are heart sinking moments. Hey, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
All good. Yeah. The first time that you think you're not going to make payroll, you'll never forget.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I was just like, ugh. Fortunately, we have never had to, deal with that. And, 16, 17 years in, I'm like, we should have figured out a thing or two to not ever have to deal with that. I've, ever since you said it, the year is May 2024. I want to let them know that, Darknet hasn't taken over yet. We're still humans. This is not deep fake, right?
We made it so far. I don't know. People of the future.
Hang in there. There is hope for humankind.
Greg, this has been a great conversation, man. I think I tried to summarize some of my big takeaways. I think you did a great job kind of sharing your story in a very, obviously condensed fashion where I know there's all kinds of goodies inside those stories and the nooks and crannies of those stories. But I really do believe that, you're so, I mean, we've just glazed or, touched on it briefly through the course of the conversation, but you are a founder of a minority contracting company that I don't know what the statistics are. I wish I did off the top of my head, but I am certain that the statistics are not great in terms of longevity of those businesses. B, that the ones that do exist generally stay pretty darn small. And so I'm going to ask you, before we jump off today, after 17 years of starting your business, how many employees do you have across your companies?
I'll round it off to 100. We did 200 plus once. I hope to never do that again.
Yeah, too many. That was too many.
Yeah, it was just too much. We've got a little over 100 people that are working for us in the field and in the office, split out New Jersey here, also, and mostly here in Maryland is where we operate, Northern Virginia and DC, Delaware.
And I think that is an exciting, story in and of itself. It shouldn't be as rare as it is, but you've definitely proven that it doesn't have to be, right? Yeah. I mean, it's you're I don't know the numbers on this. I'm sure you have a round number estimate, but the percentage of business that you even get that has to do with your minority status, what do you think that even is at this stage?
Oh man, so it used to be I kept it at 10 to 20% for the longest time, right? And it was just one of the beautiful things. And when I started my business, I knew nothing about the world of M&A, right? I was like, what is that? Like, knew about M&Ms.
Mergers and acquisitions for those of our audience members who still don't know what M&A is.
And so, it was very amazing to have that conversation. They were like, what do you mean only 10%? And there is a myth. Can you make this the bullet point? There is a myth that we walk into contracts because we are a minority. That is a myth. That set aside is simply a set aside, and there are loopholes to the set aside that allow the minority to not even see those numbers. But I digress. It's interesting that I have to be low bid on a contract. However, someone else would charge a premium to give me a portion of the system. Is kind of anyway. I do this other thing that, for years and years, minority contractor walks in the door and there are these stigmas that come along with it.
That's right.
And I pride myself in the work that we do. I never, ever wanted to be a stereotype ever in my life, right? And so it's that we go out and we do quality, we do excellent, and we hold our guys to it. Do we make mistakes? Yes. But as I like to say, we own those mistakes, right? So the percentage is probably up to about 30 to 40%, maybe 50 by now that we do. 8A certified, I have done less than 10% of my business on the 8A scale. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think at the time when we got there, we were teetering on outpacing the parameters for being an 8A contractor.
Well, I only bring it up. I bring it up for probably a few reasons, but mostly is to emphasize the point that you're just running a really good business. You're not, having nothing to do with your minority status. You're just, and you are the furthest thing from a stereotype, in that sense. And I applaud you for having designed a company that really, is based on doing the right thing by our people, doing an excellent job in the field, having a strong reputation, owning our mistakes, those types of things. That's how you build a good company. And,
I'm honored that my peers, that have been in business for 100 years that will call on us, 17-year-old, a teenage company.
A teenager, yeah.
To come around and be like, hey, guy, why don't you come intern for us for a little bit and we'll show you how to make this thing work. But yeah, I'm honored that, we can partner on to the tune of millions of dollars. And the other part is like the bonding industry that you touched on earlier. Yep. It's like, I learned very early on because of the contacts that I had, because of the pillars and the connections. It's like, you kind of separate yourself with your bondability. You separate yourself by having good numbers, by being able to present those things on time. You and I, Chad, kind of went through like recorrecting some of our internal processes to get our web back up to, where it makes sense, to get our numbers back to where it's speaking in a timely fashion and telling the story on paper.
It's it's working. I'm excited for your future. I'm excited to bring you back on in a year or two. Maybe we'll wait until you're not a teenager. We'll wait till you hit 20.
Ooh.
We'll bring you on.
Thanks for the vote of confidence and the kick into the future. Like,
That's right.
We're not calling you for two.
Both of those things. Hey, look, we've only had one repeat guest, and it's an economist who comes on and talks about.
Oh, wow. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah, he is. He's awesome. Monty Bond's he is a great.
Yeah, he is.
So, Greg, thank you so much. Again, appreciate your time today. Appreciate you sharing your story with us. And if people wanted to get in touch with you because they want to share their journey with you, or they want to find ways to help, where would they do that? On LinkedIn, or how would they connect with you?
LinkedIn works as well. My email address, gmalcolm@ironshoregrp.com. That works as well. I'm calling the office for it's this old-fashioned thing called a telephone.
That's weird.
Like, my voice actually comes across as weird. Like, you ask somebody for me, but anyway, 443-552-5732. You can find our website. Yes, Stacy, I know.
Stacy's like, I'm gonna do that damn website.
It's been a 5-year journey.
All right. I'm here when you need me.
All righty.
Greg, have a great day, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. See ya.
Bye.
Stacy. So that was, Greg's a blast. What a great guy. He's got stories combined with quotes, right? Like memorable stuff. I'm sitting over here scribbling and I can speak with personal experience on this one. He does live the golden rule. He really, really does. So what'd you say?
Said good people.
Yeah, good people. We're lucky to have some awesome guests, aren't we?
Yes.
So who's next? And is this our last show or two?
No,
how many do we have?
2 more. So next week we have a panel. We have ABC National joining us for mental health awareness. So we have Greg Sizemore, Joe Xavier, and Haley Moyers on.
Awesome.
And they've been doing a completely different thing over there. So they gave us a brief rundown of it when we met them last, but something called Total Human Health Initiative they're pioneering, and the Vital Cog program. So I'll let them share their story next week, but there's a lot of change in the industry for sure, which is really great when it comes to mental health.
Well, I've known Joe Xavier for about a decade, and he I don't know what he's up to right now. Can't wait to hear what they're covering on the show in more depth. But I can say this: I have not met a more articulate and passionate safety advocate. And when I think about safety, I think about the in the full scope of what it means to protect the lives of our construction community. So I can't wait to have him on. It's going to be an awesome conversation, and yet another brought to you by Stacy Holzinger. Yes, that'll be awesome.
Yes. All right. I'll see you next week.
So I'll see you soon. Please check out the book, everybody. Please get on and do a pre-order of the book. And if you send me the link, or a picture or whatever that you bought the book, I will send you an advance copy of the ebook of the Kindle version or whatever, that you get a PDF version, so that you can go ahead and start reading, so that you're ready to write a review when the book launches in June. Please do take a moment to check that out. Thank you again, everybody, and thank you, Stacy, for all you're doing to make sure we have awesome people on this show.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.
Talk soon. See ya.